Hello, everybody, and welcome to Hash Rate. My guest today is Mr. James Woodman of Targon Subnet 4. Hello, James. How you doing?
Hello, Mark. Thank you for having me again.
Welcome back to the show. It's been a little while, right? I think it was maybe 4 months ago, something like that.
Something
No,
like
it's
that.
got to
A
be
lot.
more than that, right? I think it was right after I was in Austin for Endgame. I think, right?
That's
Like, it was pretty
true.
close. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been about, I guess, 6 months in the real world, so about 6 years. And
Oh my God, I've lost all my hair. I know, it's crazy.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm not there yet, but maybe one day I'll lose it too.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it happened sort of like overnight. It was weird. It was like I thought I had really thick hair most of my life, and it just started falling out. Like right when I'm like in my late 50s, so it was like right around my mid 50s, and
Okay.
yeah, I was just like, what the fuck is going on? And then I went back and looked at old pictures of my grandfather on my mom's side and his father, and they were both domes. So I was like, I should have known, right? Because it apparently comes from the mother's side, right? So
Okay.
anyway,
Fair
there it is.
enough.
Enough about my lack of follicles. So let's talk a little bit about Targon. So since we last spoke, you raised $10 million. Holy shit, right? So tell us a little bit about the raise first. Let's get everyone caught up on that.
That's correct. We raised $10.5 million from our good friend JJ and his firm OSS Capital, and a good batch of angels as well, including Tobias Luque from Shopify, Ram Sriram, who is the founding board member of Google.
Wow.
Gave Larry and Sergey a $500,000 check in their garage, which was a good investment for him, I would say. But yeah, we raised the money, which has really helped us. It's forced us to definitely focus more on just delivering a world-class product, which we continue to do on a daily basis. And it's great to have these people in the ecosystem. It's given us a little bit of firepower to expand, reduce some of the sell pressure on our token. And look, the reason that we wanted to work with JJ is because I don't think it changed the soul of our company much. So, on paper, it's like, oh, it's a big deal, but I wasn't even prepared to talk about it today because it really has not changed our mission, our company's fabric, which is what we wanted. So it's a good moment. If anyone's raising out there in the community, I'm more than happy to talk to you about it and kind of walk you through how we thought about it on a more personal basis.
I mean, getting Toby and getting Ram. I mean, holy shit, those are like really high profile investors. Never mind in the Bittensor world, but just sort of like in the world. And those guys are legends, right? So I'm sort of amazed that they invested in a Bittensor subnet. I'm not going to lie, because we're so early, right? Like obviously, I believe very strongly in our space, but I also know that sort of people from that side of the fence sort of look at our side of the fence and are like, what is this crypto AI? What the fuck is that? Is that like a real thing? Is it a meme coin? What is that, right? Like there is that sort of initial deep skepticism that arises out of them. So could you tell us a little bit about how did you find your way to those guys and what was sort of, were they skeptical at first and how did you sort of get them over that hump?
Well, look, there's a lot of skepticism with centralized AI as well. Maybe even more skepticism. And I go on ChatGPT. I was on it today, and it gets slower and slower. Like it's so clear that the performance is degrading. And if you forecast out, 5-10 years, it's hard to see how the way they're building the infrastructure, just how much capital is flowing in, that's really going to scale. You have the AOL analogy that still resonates with people like Toby and Ram. So, it wasn't a hard sell at all. And, we were fortunate to be connected through a friend. So it was quite easy. And for them, it's not like a huge chunk of money. So it probably means more to us than it does to them. But it's good. It's a good stamp of approval, right? It gets Bittensor closer to these, not even Fortune 500, Mag 7 boardrooms, where we can really have a serious conversation when the time is right. We have, a lot of work to do here ourselves and inside of the community before we, really want to go out and have those conversations. But it was a big moment for us, something we'd been thinking about for a long time, and we couldn't have brought better people aboard.
Yeah, that is pretty amazing. So the other thing I want to talk a little bit about is I know we just had Shack and Ridges, Subnet 62, announced their product, and I know that they use a lot of they use other people. I don't like to mention other subnets when we're focusing on you, the guest, but there are other subnets that they use also. But I know that they use you quite a bit, and maybe even more than anyone else. And I think, and I'm not sure if the trusted execution environment that you guys have plays into that or not. But can you talk a little bit about your support of Ridges and whether the T has anything to do with that or not? And maybe just tell us a little bit about the T while you're at it.
Sure. Well, Ridges is fantastic. Shaquille is, one of my favorite. I call everyone in Bittensor a colleague. So he's one of my favorite colleagues because I very much view Bittensor as a company, right? So we want to help Shaquille, whether Shaquille is going to be helped by us, Shoots, both, or Liam. I mean, it doesn't really matter as long as we're, this flywheel within Bittensor must be accelerating at all times, and we need to do everything we can to help him. So why do we help him? Well, he is our most important customer because he's a colleague. So whatever he tells us to do, we integrate the feature for him right away. The way we work with our clients is simple. We say, what do you want? We're going to put you in a Slack room right now, and you'll tell us every feature, and we'll build it for you, and it's priority zero. And we move it a mile a minute for the people who are trusting us with their production workloads. So we've been fortunate to, of course, earn a lot of that business on the product side. The TEE almost certainly plays a role. The TEE has been really exciting. Before when we talked 6 months ago, it was still very much an idea, but now it's working in production. I mean, you can go on Targon.com and rent these containers that are running. You get an H100, H200, whatever you want. You get a CPU, but maybe even cooler. An upgrade we had on the 27th of October on Subnet 4. We have now forced every validator to run and prove that they're running real hardware via an inside TVM to get vTrust. So this is a massive deal because it's combating weight copying, which, as you know, has been maybe one of the biggest drains on Bittensor for as long as I can remember. And there have been a lot of attempts at a solution, a lot of valiant attempts. And so if you ask me, what am I most excited about right now with TVM? It's that, like the ability to stop wasting the money inside this protocol, inside our company, right? So we're in early stage.
I just want to stop you for a second because I've heard about weight copying. I haven't. I mean, obviously, I understand without having been a validator myself. I know what it is. You're basically copying somebody else's paper, right? Like it's pretty easy to understand that part, which lessens the incentive mechanism enforcement of Bittensor, which pollutes it basically, which dilutes its power. Right. You don't want people copying each other's paper because then they're not doing their own work, which sort of defeats proof of work. Right. Like if it's proof of useful work, you're not doing useful work. You're just copying somebody else's paper. Right. So
Correct.
Can you talk a little bit about what weight copying is and how exactly you defeat it? Because I think this is an important point.
Well, you did about as good a job as anyone could do. I view it as a massive leech on the network. Anyone who's been a weight copier in the past is nothing more than a massive leech. But you got to understand why you would do it, right? If I could make the same amount of money with no work, then of course I'm going to do it. And so if you don't need to prove that you are running the machine that we are asking you to run, if all you have to do is submit your weights by copying someone else, then you can get away with it on any other subnet. Right now on Subnet 4 with the TVM solution, you have to prove via the attestation. And what this attestation is, it's either with Intel, AMD, or NVIDIA on the GPU side with PPCIe. And it's basically just checking that the key on your machine is verified by NVIDIA and that you are the owner and the rightful operator of that machine. And so if you can't pass attestation within TVM, then that means you don't own the hardware, which means you aren't doing real work, which means you don't deserve to get paid.
And this is just for validators, right? Or is it from miners also?
Well, in production right now, it's for validators. But I think one day here soon, it would be a great solution for the miners as well, right? If we could standardize the validation and the work on the mining side that's done throughout the protocol. I mean, if I look at, I know you're an early Ethereum guy. You must remember the pre-ERC20 days. Yes. When you had to write all this custom code to interact with any other token. This is kind of where we are right now in Bittensor on the validation side, where you got to write custom code to validate every single subnet. There's no standardized layer, which makes it more difficult to get real institutions in. So to sum it up, easily, TVM on Subnet 4 has combated weight copying for the very first time in the history of the network. And we're talking to other subnet owners who, of course, are interested in this because, one, most importantly, you want useful work to occur on your network. And two, you're also going to make more money in yield if less of that yield is going to, these cockroach leeches, for lack of a better term, and into the pockets of the honest workers where it belongs.
So is it possible for a subnet owner to say, we only accept validators that are running your software, that are authenticated via your I guess you call it TVM. So in other words, could I, as a subnet owner, require the usage of Targon validation only?
That's correct. So you can do that. Correct. You can do that. We can have a VM pre-baked with your incentive mechanism, and then you force the validators to run that, and then it's all attested via TVM.
Wow, that's super cool. And as far as I know, the other people do not have anything like this. So this could be a way to sort of get crazy market share within Bittensor. Never mind sort of the enterprise people, but just within the Bittensor space, get crazy usage within that universe. That's super cool.
Correct. It's good for us and TVM, but much more importantly, it's good for Bittensor, right? And onboarding these increasingly real teams into the network. So yeah, it's super exciting. Hopefully it'll be rolled out here with other subnets and across the entire network. So that next time when we catch up on the show, we'll have a lot more progress to share there.
Yeah. So I'm going to move on to some other topics, but before I do that, I want to stay on Targon for one last question. So who right now is using Targon? Are the majority of people other Bittensor folks and subnets and validators and things, or is it are there enterprise clients? Like, what does the breakdown of your customer base look like right now?
It's mostly intra-Bittensor, and that's where we want to focus. I'll be honest, when we talked last time, we had these ambitions of, everyone's going to want to use this because we're so much cheaper, and we're going to go to the Fortune 500 and we'll walk into the boardroom and it'll be the easiest sale ever, right? The numbers will tell the story for us. And we've had a lot of these conversations. We're very good at getting into the room. I'll tell you that much. Yeah. But where Bittensor still needs to, reinforce itself and improve is most certainly from within. You could even make the analogy to politics, right? If you're a leader, you have your domestic politics and then you have your foreign politics, and you really shouldn't spend too much time on foreign politics until things are shored up at home. And so right? I mean, in theory, of course, there's some elements at home that are impacted by foreign forces. But for the most part, you need to ensure that, your citizens are living a great life. And as I look at our go-to-market, we have all of this built-in demand with Bittensor. So not only is it, a way easier, quicker sales process, but also it's proven that we can actually build this economy. And if we can build this economy amongst the many people who are already here, then you'll see much more capital flow in. I envision, so we work with Ridges, like you pointed out. We also work with Dippy. Those two, and we're talking to many others, right? But those are the two that we're public and totally integrated with already. Dippy is already a consumer product. Ridges I'm very excited about them. I mean, they released, like you said, last week. I think comparing them to a Claude Code IDE experience is hopefully what the end state looks like there. But if their product goes mainstream, and part of the reason it goes mainstream is because within our economy, we've become very, very good at sourcing this compute and verifying it in a standardized way, ensuring there's real work done and there's zero leakage, then I think you'll see a lot of people, especially in Silicon Valley, go, okay, now I want to really check this thing out. Now I'm going to put money in. And then without even really trying, simply by focusing on delivering a great experience for the people of Bittensor, we will see much more capital flow in.
So Bittensor is your crossing the chasm market strategy. So where you pick one sliver of what's a very large market, you get a beachhead like Normandy, like when we attacked the beaches at Normandy, right? We didn't attack the entire coastline. We just hit Normandy and we're like, we're going to own this, get a beachhead, and then from there we kind of expanded out into the rest of Europe, right? So Bittensor is your Normandy.
100%. We've had prospects, very large, that I know you probably even know them personally in some respects, and they've wanted to use us. They've tested the permissionless product.
Yeah.
But one thing keeps coming up, and that's, hey, one, you got to be SOC 2 compliant. You got to have all these badges that you got to go spend money, spend a bunch of time internally getting the badge. And with a lot of the larger publicly traded dames, they ask for a list of people with key card access to the data center.
I've done SOC too. Yeah, no, I've done. Yeah. I've done it. So go ahead. Please continue.
So if you don't have that,
and you're like, what data center? What do you even talk? Like, that's not how this works. This is like Napster data center, right? It's decentralized, right? Like, who's the president of Bitcoin? It's like that's how stupid that question is in this context, right?
So you can sit there and say, oh, should we try to band-aid some solution here? And yeah, we can technically figure out who the miner is, yada, yada, yada. At the end of the day, we either have to do it right for the right reason, which means anyone can participate. And by allowing anyone to participate, you drive the cost lower. Or we should just go into the brokering business. So we made the crazy hard decision of not going into the brokering business, and we're gonna focus on the thing that we're focused on, which is our economy. Here in Bittensor, there's 128 subnets, startups, whatever you want to call them, and we want to work with every single one on the TVM side to begin, on the mining side, any which way we can help the network. That is what we want to do.
Yeah, I think you've made the right decision there, because I know you and I have talked. We've talked offline a little bit about your enterprise aspirations, and I thought that was a great direction to go. Now that you've sort of fully explored that and kind of been like, well, maybe it's not the right direction to go, maybe, or at least not right now. Maybe in the future it will be, but at the moment, not so much. But I think your basic. Let's talk about the sort of like the basic thesis of Targon, and frankly also Schutz and Liam to a certain degree, which is, look, if you can go buy this, you can go buy inference from AWS or these other places, or you can buy it from us, and it'll cost you 1/10 roughly of what it'll cost you elsewhere, because we have all these miners which are actually supplying the inference in this grid under the hood. We don't control those miners. Those are just a bunch of people who are here donating electricity and GPU to the Targon grid, if you will. And why are they doing that? Well, because they're getting emissions in the form of Targon tokens, right, with every block, which is exactly how Bitcoin works. Like, it's literally the exact same game plan, right? And so if you're a miner, you believe that those tokens are going to be worth something a lot more down the road. And that's kind of why you're doing it, right? That's why you mine Bitcoin in the early days. But those miners, they have to pay for electricity. They have to pay for rack space, or, however they got their machines, might have to pay for the machines. So they have hard costs, which means some portion of what they farm in terms of emissions, they have to dump it to pay for the stuff, right? So there's sort of there's sell pressure always going on, unless they're just wealthy and they're just collecting it and they don't care. But that's not most of probably the miners, would be my guess, right? Most of them have to sell. With this new change, which sort of, and we're going to talk about how it occurred, but let's just talk about what it is. The net TAO Flow upgrade, which occurred, I guess it was last week. It feels like 4 months ago now, but I guess it was just last week, right? It was a big surprise to all of us, right? Like, we didn't know that was coming. That wasn't like months in advance we knew it was coming. But but it basically changed how the emissions work in Bittensor, such that we're now measuring how much tau is being sequestered per subnet, meaning basically how much buying of the subnet token is going on roughly. But if you have a network like, and some networks don't have cell pressure, the miners don't have hard costs. Yours do though. So there's always some cell pressure, right? Which works against the TAO flow. It's always, you're always dumping on the TAO flow, which is the thing which determines your emissions, but your emissions are used to pay for the mining rigs. So what does that do to you? Does that not create a death spiral? That was my first reaction. I was like, oh my God, Shoots and Targon are probably hit the most. And probably Liam are probably hit the most by this. I don't know if I'm right, but that was where my brain went initially. Is that right or is that wrong? And what do you think of that dynamic now?
It's a lot of good points here. So before I get to TAO Flow, I'll talk about the mining and the compute space more at large and how I think Bittensor is going to win here. Like, why are we even here in the first place? I think that there's so much money flowing in, and you can go get, debt. You can go get, you can raise equity, cash for equity, and get all the money you need to start a data center. And projections don't really matter right now. It's kind of Sam Altman's waving his hand saying that one day we're going to make $1 trillion because we're going to build God. Is that going to happen within the next 5 years? Probably not. I think at some point within that 5-year period, you're going to see massive amounts of distress at the compute owner level. And at that point, right now they can be very picky because they can get money anywhere. So they're not going to come to Bittensor in most cases because there's some level of complexity here, if nothing else from an understanding perspective. I think at some point here, when there's cracks, we're going to be able to go to these very large data centers and say, hey, like, come put your compute here. And then you'll have basically a consortium of all these big guys who you're reading about now, whether it's Meta and their large sites, Blue Owl Capital and whatever they're financing. A lot of that capacity is going to find its way onto our network once the capital markets dry up and we maintain our network and our economy. This is why over the first 20 minutes, I've been harping that we must become resilient on our own. Because if we become resilient on our own, we will be in that position to suck up and act as a black hole for a lot of this foolishness that's taking place in Silicon Valley. Oh, so when you talk about TAO Flow, why we need TAO Flow, like you, I've thought about it, right? At first I was like, my gut reaction, which is almost, never what you want to go off of, right? Just like stick your finger in it with a complicated change. Some things in life, of course, you want to trust your gut. But this one you really want to think about. And I'm a big fan of TAO Flow now because it's going to force us to create our own economy. So are we screwed? No, not at all. I think that if you look at what it's forcing us to do now, it's forcing Bittensor to become, gross margin positive and to work with the other subnets and to provide a great experience for them. And the TAO will stay within the network. Whether that TAO is staked to Subnet 4 or Subnet 62 should not actually really matter, right? If you believe and agree with me that Shaquille is my colleague, I'm just as happy to see the TAO in his pool as I am to see it in mine, because it means that we're growing together. And so if you take the view that, Targon should just be this network where people are dumping it all the time and, paying Shadeform, paying CoreWeave, paying AWS, then I don't see how the network ever is anything other than a short-term boon for some of these centralized providers. We cannot afford to play the same game that Silicon Valley is playing. Burn, no hope in sight, no accountability because it's a token. And so for us, I don't think it changes much. I actually think it kind of narrows our focus a bit more, where now, we really don't want to get too distracted with anything outside of the network, these foreign politics that I'm talking about. We want to really want to focus in on our home here, Bittensor. If anything, right, we're going to use, if we do have excess compute in moments of time, then we can go and put them on other networks and bring those tokens back in to the Bittensor economy. I don't think it's of course, I respect everything that other protocols are trying to do. But at the end of the day, I'm a citizen of Bittensor and I want us to win. And so if that means we're going to go mine their protocol and bring their productive capacity into our nation, then that's what we're going to do. So it's great. You can view TAO Flow almost as like a founder lockup where, hey, you can't you can't leave and start paying AWS and leaking all the money until we've built something here for ourselves.
Yeah, so I just want to go back and highlight something you said. So you were talking about the profligate spending of the centralized AI players, and probably highest on that list is Sam Altman this past week, sort of saying that, hey, the U.S. government needs to start subsidizing OpenAI, right? And then you had David Sachs saying, yeah, that's never going to happen, and he's the crypto and AI czar and bros with Elon, obviously. But it does highlight like the fact that popped out, and then Sam was like, oh, I didn't really say that, blah 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 blah, but he did kind of say it, and it highlights. He must be having some internal gut churning over the amount of money he's spending and seeing the amount of money he's going to have to spend just to sort of keep the plate spinning. He's sort of playing the Uber game, right? Like Travis played this game. He won at this game. And the game was venture capital money is subsidizing half of the real cost of every ride that I deliver. So the price that the end user customer is paying is not really real. It's basically just sort of pushed off into the future. Uber did eventually become a profitable company, but it took them a decade. And at any point over that decade, if they died somewhere in the middle, they could have, the economics the unit economics were completely upside down for a very long time. Centralized AI is playing the same sort of dangerous game right now, except it's on a much larger scale. So there's probably nobody to bail them out the way there was kind of with Uber, right? So, if the wheels come off of this thing, then you're sitting in a great position. Is basically what you're saying. You're like, we built it right.
That's the bet we've made. That's the bet we made 2 years ago. The bet hasn't changed. And if you look at Uber as an example, I would say that a network like Bittensor is much more like Uber. The Uber driver, carries a lot of that capital expense. They got to buy the car. They buy the car themselves. They pay for the gas. Uber is not touching that. Uber is asset light. OpenAI is not asset light at all. I mean, they're whether they own the infrastructure themselves or they're tied up in some complex financing agreement, they're on the hook for a lot of this spend. So unless you believe that one single company is going to be able to monetize, on the order of $1 trillion in revenue here over the next few years, that is so much money in revenue. That's like, Amazon scale revenue for something that right now, at least in its current state, and I know it's going to get better, but in its current state, it's a bit better than Google. It allows you to program more efficiently, of course, and that, you're going to have a degradation of the software engineering career path. If you're mediocre, that'll be replaced by Altman. So of course, there's ways he can make up revenue. He can advertise and make a ton there and turn ChatGPT into some, slop social media app if they get desperate enough. So they're going to have levers to pull. But at the end of the day here, I don't think they have the ability to pull it off. You can't mess with the numbers, and what we're doing is just much more efficient. So in a way, you kind of have to sit here and say, let's be patient, right? Let's do the right thing every single day. And our time will come.
Okay. All right, let's move on now and talk about how this TAO Flow thing arrived on our doorstep. So a week ago, none of us had heard of TAO Flow at all, right? It wasn't something that was discussed at all in the Bittensor ecosystem. And then I think it was last Thursday in what's normally novelty search, Cons comes on and goes, oh, we're not doing novelty search anymore. Instead, this is going to be governance search. I'm just going to talk about the state of basically state of the union of Bittensor. And I've got something big to talk about today. And that is we're about to make this big change, all about, we're going to change how emissions are done inside of Bittensor. And Cons said something which really stuck with me, which I hadn't really ever heard him say before. He said, look, all of you are running subnets. There's 128 subnets. I, Const, am running the super subnet, otherwise known as Bittensor, and I sent the incentive mechanisms, and I can change them. I am altering the deal, right? Kind of vibe, right? Like without being evil, but basically saying I'm the beneficent super subnet operator, and it is my responsibility to make sure that all of Bittensor is evolving in the proper way. And I need to set the incentives to, if I notice something looks off, I need to rethink the incentives in a way which corrects what is sort of going off kilter here. So so the question is, and I thought we were, when I first got into Bittensor, I thought this was like Ethereum, where like, Vitalik, wrote this thing and it got up and running and it's completely permissionless and nobody talks to Vitalik. Nobody, none of this, you don't have to go to Vitalik to set up Aave or Uniswap, right? But in Bittensor, you sort of do have to talk to Const at some point, right? You have to, your incentive mechanism is going to come in front of his eyes at some point and he's going to have an opinion on it. So there's a lot more sort of hands-on here, right? It's not like this permissionless blockchain. And also the rules, we've now learned, the rules can change at any time, which I don't think, I think we kind of knew that, but we've never really seen an example of it happening very quickly like it just did. Are we all in some sense in a super company or super Keiretsu together in Bittensor? You've been saying that. And is this the proper way for this thing to be operating? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's a good question. If you look back at early Ethereum, which you mentioned, I read something the other day. I'll forward it to you later, and maybe we can put it in the show notes. There was an early Ethereum Foundation member that was complaining that if you wanted to do anything in Ethereum, you had to talk to Vitalik and blah, blah, blah. And so I don't think this is just a Bittensor problem. In general, I think that you can't just spawn a decentralized network. I think that's like anarchy, or communism. I think you have to very much earn your place in the hierarchy. So if you look at the current hierarchy, I'd say Jake obviously is number one because he built the thing and has been here a long time. And we all believe that he's certainly, he's putting his money where his mouth is because he owns a lot of TAO. And I think anyone that owns a lot of TAO should have a large say. Anyone that's doing a lot of work for the ecosystem should have a large say. If anything, I think the problem right now in Bittensor is that it's disorganized to a point where you see, only one person to go to. Maybe it's Const. And so we need more people to step up, and it should start here at Manifold. If there's a proposal you don't like, or if there's something that you think is wrong with the network in some way, shape, or form, then you should write a paper yourself and you should come present it on the Open Dev call. What is the Open Dev call? Some people might not know what it is. That's a problem, right? There's a lot of funds and smart money in this thing that don't have time to be loitering around Discord all day long. And so we need to do things to increase the accessibility of these platforms so that more people can really talk and have honest conversations about it. But no, I don't think this is necessarily a huge problem, right? I think that this decentralization is going to come over time. It's not, something that you can spawn, as I said. And so I would put the onus on us. Like we've put the pressure on ourselves internally to just do more, say more, be more, open ourselves up more. We have been here for a long time. Rob and I both have, and we've seen many different changes over the lifetime of the network. And so we want to open, our calendars and our time up to more and more people, as does our entire team, and just show, like, I'm sick of talk. I want us to show what it's like to govern. And there's no syllabus for this, right? No one's tried to build this counterweight to OpenAI. So we shouldn't expect to have the answers overnight. We just have to keep having conversations like the one you and I are having right now, and many, many more. The truth comes out when people speak. So yeah, it's fine, right? Like I think that, as we just talked about, the upgrade's actually a good one. It would be really bad if it was a bad upgrade. But that goes to show that I think most of the people right now who own a lot of the token have the best interest of the protocol in mind.
They do. And I think, so this is a beneficent dictatorship. Like let's just be honest. It's not decentralized. Not yet. It will be in the future, hopefully, but it's not right now. And I think that's okay. I don't think that's bad, because I think we've got Caesar Augustus, right? As long as we don't end up with Caligula somewhere down the road, like we're doing okay, right? So Caesar Augustus was awesome. And the thing I've observed about Const and the team sort of running things, and every change that's been made. When I first read the DTAO design, where you have like this Uniswap that's baked into the chain, and the tokens are emitted into the pools. Like, what the fuck is that? Like, that was we'd never seen anything like that before, right? And I remember thinking, like, this is really weird. It's overcomplicated. It's going to fail just under the weight of its complexity. And in retrospect, I now think it was surprisingly, amazingly designed, and in fact, the correct way to do it. And I didn't really understand that until I was living it, right? Like when I was feeling the pools and interacting with what was going on, and kind of realizing, oh, this defeats early whales slurping up all the tokens. Like during the ICO phase, like that was the bane of everyone's existence, right? Like you had VCs coming in or whales slurping up most of the value from anything other than Bitcoin kind of later on down the road, including the Ethereum ICO, right? So this very cleverly defeated that. And it wasn't until I was really sort of feeling it in my bones, I was like, oh, wow, this design is actually really good. And the more I lived with it, the more I realized it was actually awesome. And the fact that it launched without any bugs, like that was insanely amazing, given the complexity of the task, of that upgrade, right? So I've learned to sort of trust Caesar Augustus, right? Even if I don't initially agree with him, I'm like, okay, I'm going to kick back and sort of watch and see if there's stuff I'm not really understanding yet or feeling in my bones. And I feel like, and I feel like that's what's going on right now with this new TAO Flow thing. And so I'm generally in favor of it. I generally feel like it's pretty good. Time will tell, but so far, I think everyone's opinion of it is that it was a good change. So
yeah, and look, it's never good to blindly trust anyone or anything. Like I saw Peter Thiel wrote something in the Free Press over the weekend saying that he wishes less people voted. And as a proud American, I think you probably are too, Mark. I strongly disliked that statement. I think
strongly dislike. I agree.
That the duty of a citizen that's the American way, is you're always the most informed and you talk about it. And so that's I think environment we want to cultivate here within Bittensor. So no blind trust, but also respecting that there is some level of authority in any democracy. It's always going to be that way if you want it to function, at least. If you just have a bunch of people thinking that some anonymous guy on Discord who's spun up an account yesterday should have the same voting weight as Jake, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So there's obviously complexity to it, but I think we're trending in very much the right direction here, and we just need to keep doing that.
Yeah. So another question, another sort of philosophical. Another philosophical question here. So there was something that Kant said actually in a Discord channel not long ago, and it was something to the effect of, we were all discussing because of TAO Flow, right? TAO Flow means that there has to be constant buying or sequestering of TAO within your subnet, right? So, which means people are buying your subnet token. There's a lot of buy pressure going on at all times, consistently over time, which would seem to suggest that there has to be revenue coming into your subnet, which is then being used to purchase your subnet tokens. There has to be some mechanism always driving buy pressure, which would seem to suggest that sort of the research subnets, as I call them, things like Templar, et cetera, that are attempting to do something extraordinary, but on a long-term time frame, right? Like Templar is trying to do decentralized training for frontier models. And that's going to take years, maybe a year. It won't be less than a year. Like in the best case, probably for it to succeed and be able to go toe to toe with Grok and OpenAI, right? Like that's what I'm talking about. Frontier model, right? And but in the meantime, they're not making any revenue. In the meantime, there is no mechanism continually driving new demand for their token. Like Hippias is basically got a model set up where deterministically, as revenue and usage increase in Hippias storage subnet, according to the design anyway, the Hippias subnet token should deterministically go up in value as usage and revenue increases. Templar does not have a similar mechanism, nor will it work for a year. So, and there's like maybe 10 of these big brain, high gamble, big concept subnets, which would seem to suggest they will not do well in the TAO Flow world. But what Kant said was, no, that's the wrong way to look at this. In fact, The demand, look at OpenAI, right? OpenAI is largely, it's a big vision and it's delivering, but it's not delivering in terms of revenue. If you just look at the revenue of the company, it's not doing great, right? So I think what Const is saying is that people will speculate on these big vision subnets more than you think. And in fact, that is in some ways the prime purpose of Bittensor. And so don't get focused on these revenue subnets, right? As it were. So what do you think about the survivability of, in the near term, under TAO Flow, of the research subnets, I guess, is my actual question. What are your thoughts?
It's a good question. And I agree with Jake, and I hope that it plays out that way. So long as, the holders of TAO and the people allocating their tokens take a long-term view. So why does OpenAI have the ability to spend unlimited amounts of money? Well, because they've sold this vision to investors. Investors want to own a piece of their pie because Sam Altman has told people that he's building digital God, and he'll have an unlimited money printer, he'll have power, he'll have all sorts of things that investors want. So it's the duty of whether, your Templar or your IOTA, I think it's strategically necessary for Bittensor to have the same ability to create a frontier model that's state of the art. So how would this play out? If Targon truly becomes, this standardization layer of Bittensor, which is our aim, then it's logical that a lot of the inflation from a 3 or a 9, a subnet 3 or a subnet 9, will flow into our subnet if miners are paying for compute on subnet 4. So now what do we do if we see our emissions rising, and 3 or 9, our customers almost going out of business? Well, we would want our customers to stay in business, just full stop. But 2, if we think about it, we also want our company, Bittensor, to have the ability to produce these frontier models. So we would be directly incentivized, perfectly incentivized, I would say, to put some fraction of that money back into these subnets that we think are doing good and honest work. And it should not just be Manifold, right? It should be any revenue generating subnet with positive TAO flow should have the ability to kind of pick and choose who should get these grants or VC funding, whatever the hell you want to analogize it to. So I think it'll work itself out so long as you have smart and honest people, who are in this over the long run. I think Jake's vision that he talks about in Discord will come true.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure what I think just yet. But that is the conundrum in my head. I would say my working theory is that I didn't really think of it the way you did, which is where Targon would actually be compelled to subsidize some of the research subnets at a certain point, incentivized by capitalism, which is why which is what we want. We don't want centralized Soviet planning, right? That never works. So. As New York is probably about to find out. We'll see. But that's what it looks like.
Don't get me started. I'm so disappointed.
But okay, let them have their fun, right? It's going to go where it's going to go. But in my own mind, the dynamic is I think there's maybe 20 subnets, something like that, which have consumer promise that could cross the chasm, right? I'm always saying no subnet has yet crossed the chasm. And by that, I mean has $1 billion plus valuation and has gobs of revenue coming in and gobs of customers. And it's just growing like crazy, right? The Uber phenomenon, right? As we've seen multiple times. So Ridges looks like it could be the first one to cross the chasm. We'll see. But there are other, Hippias is another candidate. I would say Synth is another candidate. There are many. Quantum could be I'm not sure about that one just yet, but it could be, right? There could be they have real quantum computers for rent, right? So we'll see. I think Dippy could be one of those as well, right? So there are a number of these sort of things in play, and I think once one of them does, and one of them suddenly is off to the races, and its valuation is going up like crazy, and it's got $1, $2, $3 billion valuation just on its own as a subnet. And centralized exchanges are listing them. All of a sudden, a lot of eyeballs that are sort of in Solana are going to start looking at Bittensor and be like, "Oh, holy shit! Look what happened with this one. there's 127 more of these fucking things. I'll bet, there's probably some gold in here. So which one is it? And they're going to start betting on them, right? And some of them will bet on the revenue subnets, but some of them will catch wind of the big vision ones and be like, oh, well, I'm going to take some portion and put it in here because you never know. It could be an Amazon. It could be an OpenAI, right? Like that's going to be the thinking. So I think material commercial success of 1, 2, 3 revenue subnets will then drive speculation on the research subnets. I think that is the order of operations. That's sort of my guess. So
yeah, 100%. But yeah, no, I think that these speculative subnets will generate this sort of investment, whether it's through us, whether it's through people who want to speculate on the next Amazon. They should go ahead. But I think, fundamentally, the positive subnets who believe in Bittensor and want to grow this protocol and ensure that it reaches its potential, which I believe is a valuation at orders of magnitude higher than where it is today.
So do I.
We will have to reinvest that money into people who are doing much more difficult and ambitious work than we are, which is, I hate to say the word merely, merely driving the cost of an H200 down to the lowest price in the world. But they're doing more complicated scientific things, and we want to fund that.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. We want the subnets. Like I love the subnets in my heart. I just sort of don't know how their token appreciates in the near term. Long term, yes. If one of these things works, it'll be insanely amazing. So I'm trying to think where I wanted to go next. Lost my train of thought. I had something. Oh, I know what it was. Because the speculation cycle, I think, will start with the revenue subnets because that's what happened in Ethereum. Right. Like it's very hard. The Ethereum ICO happened right at 33 cents. And then the price of Ethereum after it sort of came out and everybody got their tokens kind of bobbled around $12, $6, $12, $6, $12. I remember that for a long time. And nobody really knew what it was worth, but they were like, it's about $6, $12. And then all of a sudden, I think it was the Bancor ICO. We'd had the DAO before, but the DAO kind of got reversed, right? That raised about 70 million. And then it got hacked, and everybody's like, oh. And then the SEC said, never do that ever again, right? But we're not going to prosecute anybody, but that can't happen ever again. And then all of a sudden, I think it was the Bancor ICO that was like 100. It was north of 100 million, and all of a sudden, people are like, wait, you can raise 100 million just with tokens on this Ethereum blockchain? So then all of a sudden, all these eyeballs that were in Bitcoin went bloop. It was like squirrel. Right, and started looking at Ethereum immediately, and people started gobbling up Ethereum because you needed Ethereum to buy into the ICOs, and everybody started doing an ICO, right? And you just had this mad dash for Ethereum. So Ethereum went from like $12 to $30 to 120, and then it just zipped up to $1,200, right? And eventually reaching a high of I think it was like 4,500 in that cycle, right? Which gave it a value, which gave the overall blockchain evaluation of 400 to 500 billion, if I recall correctly. So, and that happened very quickly, but it took that first Bancor one was the one that, and I'm pretty sure it's Bancor. I could be mistaken on it, but that's what I remember. But that first ICO that kicked it all off, that was what led to everything else and the hyper fast acceleration. I think that's going to happen here in Bittensor, and we're just like one match and oil explosion away from that actually lighting up. So
I agree. I think, ironically, we focus on ourselves, and the people from outside will come. Build it and they will come, as they say. And, it's funny that day, how could I forget? It was Valentine's Day. Of all days, they decided to release detail on Valentine's Day. But I remember having the terminal up and just watching the prices move. And I vividly remember thinking in my head, this is so cool. Like someone in Amsterdam in 1602 must have had some similar feeling, right? As, the first stock exchange ever was born. This is a new sort of exchange. And, I keep talking about standardization, but, there's going to have to be some rule book here on, how are these tokens governed? And we're going to figure all of this out over the next decade. It's not going to happen overnight. We have to just chop wood every single day. But by doing the right thing for the people of Bittensor and bringing in new citizens, I think that we have a very, very real chance to when
if we need to chop wood every day, one might need a woodman. So thank you, Mr. Woodman, for your chopping. And yes, and that brings us back around again. Please continue your thought.
That's good. I like that. But yeah, no, the thought was almost complete there. It's just we really need to focus on us, focus on doing a good job here, increasing Bittensor's GDP, and then I think before we know it, we'll wake up one day, and we'll have stepped on some seriously big toes in Silicon Valley.
I would tend to agree. All right, James. So we're basically up on the hour here. Is there any? Let's go through your websites, whatever you want to plug. Now's the time.
Well, not much. I mean, you can go to Targon.com and rent CPUs and a few GPUs. We're working on bringing more inventory online. If you're new to Bittensor and hearing this for the first time, we really do want to talk to you, whether you're a money manager, whether you want to start a subnet, whether you want to mine, whether you want to validate, anything in between. We really do want to onboard more people. I remember spending a ton of time in 2023 talking to almost any new fund, and I loved doing that. And so I want to get back to doing that. My whole team wants to get back to doing that. So we're going to do that. And then the TVM for subnet owners. If you want to stop wait copying on your subnet, we should have a conversation. So hit me up on Twitter, on Telegram, or james@manifold.inc, and we can get that set up for you very quickly. And then, yeah, let's just all work together. My closing message would be we're colleagues more than anything. Like, all the petty infighting should not occur. Everyone wants the exact same thing. So we should work together to get that same thing. We all know what it is. So I'm super, super excited. I've actually never been more excited. And it's been volatile at times, but you smooth it out, and we're heading in a very, very positive direction.
The TAO Keiretsu, we're stronger together. So yeah, no, totally agree. Apes strong together, right? So yeah, totally agree with that, exactly. That sentiment. And we are a Keiretsu, like we're all TAO holders. So we're all sort of holders of the token of one company ultimately. And the subnet tokens are just rehypothecated TAO. So yeah, we're all rowing in the same boat, whether we know it or not, whether we understand that or not. We in the same boat. So
exactly.
Yeah. So I'm with you on that. All right, James, it's always a huge pleasure to talk to you. So thank you so much for jumping on here, sort of short notice. Always appreciated.
Likewise.
And that's it. My name is Mark Jeffrey. This has been Hash Rate. We'll see you all next time.